She arrived on Christmas night, a mail-order bride in torn boots, sent to the wrong address. The Mafia boss who answered the door never ordered a bride. He was ready to throw her out. But when he saw the mysterious mark on her wrist, everything changed. He didn't send her away. He kept her close. And now, someone wants her dead for a secret she doesn't even remember. The bus door hissed open, and Elena stepped into the worst Christmas night of her life. Snow hit her face like tiny needles. Her coat, thin as paper and borrowed from a gas station clerk in Pennsylvania, did nothing against the New York wind. She clutched the crumpled letter in her pocket, the one that promised her a new life with Mr. Robertson, a banker who needed a wife and didn't mind that she came with nothing. This the address? The bus driver squinted at the paper she'd shown him 3 times already. Elena looked up at the iron gates, then at the mansion beyond them. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't right. Mr. Chen's letters described a modest apartment in Queens, maybe Brooklyn. Something small. Something normal. This place looked like it belonged to presidents or criminals. The mansion sat behind stone walls topped with cameras that rotated slowly, watching everything. Warm light glowed from tall windows, but it didn't look welcoming. It looked like a warning. "Miss?" The driver was already reaching for the door lever. "You getting out or not? I got a schedule." "I think there's been a mistake." "Address matches." "Merry Christmas." The door closed before she could argue. Elena stood alone on the sidewalk as the bus roared away, its red taillights disappearing into the snow. Her torn boots were already soaked through. She had $17 in her purse, no phone, and nowhere else to go. She walked to the gate. A camera swiveled toward her. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a voice crackled from a speaker she couldn't see. "State your business." Elena's voice shook. I'm here to see Mr. Chen. Robert Chen. I'm his." She couldn't say it. The words stuck in her throat like shame. Silence. Then the gates opened. The driveway was longer than her entire street back in Ohio. She passed fountains covered in snow, hedges trimmed into perfect shapes, and 3 black cars that probably cost more than her father's old house. By the time she reached the front steps, her legs were numb. The door opened before she could knock. A man in a suit stood there, not old, not young, with eyes that looked through her instead of at her. "You're the mail-order bride?" Heat flooded Elena's face. She hated that phrase. Hated how it made her sound like furniture someone ordered from a catalog.
I'm Elena Petrov.
"I'm supposed to meet." "Wait here." He shut the door in her face. She stood on the steps, shivering, wondering if she should run. But run where? She'd spent her last money on the bus ticket. Behind her, the gates had already closed. The door opened again. This time, 5 men came out, all wearing the same dark suits, all watching her like she might explode. They formed a half-circle around her, and the first man gestured for her to follow. Inside, the mansion was worse than outside. The entry hall had marble floors that reflected the chandelier above, a massive thing dripping with crystals. Paintings covered the walls, the kind Elena had only seen in museums. Everything smelled like leather and expensive cigars. This wasn't a home. This was a palace. And she absolutely did not belong here. Through here, the man led her down a hallway lined with closed doors. At the end, he knocked twice on a heavy wooden door, then pushed it open. The office inside was dim, lit only by a fireplace and a single desk lamp. Behind the desk sat a man who made Elena forget how to breathe. He was young, mid-30s maybe, with black hair pushed back from a sharp face. His suit probably cost more than a car. But it was his eyes that pinned her in place. Dark, cold, and currently filled with confusion that was rapidly turning into anger. "Explain this," he said, his voice low and dangerous. He didn't look at Elena. He looked at the man who'd brought her in. "She says she's a mail-order bride, boss. Showed up at the gate asking for some guy named Robertson." The man behind the desk, the boss, finally looked at Elena. His gaze traveled from her wet hair to her soaked boots, taking in every torn seam and stain on her coat. She felt herself shrinking. "I never ordered a bride," he said slowly. "Mail order or otherwise." Elena's heart hammered. "There's been a mistake. I was supposed to go to an apartment inn. Do I look like I live in an apartment?" He stood up, and Elena took an involuntary step back. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and absolutely terrifying. "Who sent you here? Who gave you this address?" "The agency. The marriage agency in." "What agency?" He came around the desk. "Give me a name." Elena fumbled in her coat pocket, pulling out the letter. Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped it. The man snatched it from her, his eyes scanning the paper. His expression changed. The anger didn't leave, but something else joined it. Something that looked almost like shock. "Where did you get this?" His voice was quieter now, which somehow made it worse. "They mailed it to me. In Ohio. 3 weeks ago." He stared at her for a long moment, then his eyes dropped to her hands. Elena followed his gaze and realized she was gripping her left wrist with her right hand, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "Let me see your wrist." "What?" "Your wrist. Show me."
Now.
Elena hesitated, then held out her left arm. The man grabbed it, not roughly, but firmly, and pushed back her sleeve. His thumb traced over the birthmark on her inner wrist, the crescent-shaped mark she'd always had. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get this mark?" "I was born with it. It's just a..." Gunshots exploded outside. The window behind the desk shattered. The man, the boss, moved faster than Elena thought possible. He grabbed her arm and yanked her to the floor as more shots rang out. Glass rained down. Someone was shouting. Alarms started blaring. The boss pinned her down with one arm while pulling a gun from his jacket with the other. "Stay down." "What's happening?" Elena couldn't breathe. "What's..." "Someone followed you here." He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something other than anger in his eyes.
Fear.
"And that mark on your wrist?" He pulled her up, already moving toward a door hidden in the wall paneling. "That mark means you were never meant to arrive alive." The hidden door led to a narrow staircase that smelled like concrete and gun oil. Elena stumbled on the steps, but the man, whose name she still didn't know, kept her upright with an iron grip on her arm. "Move faster." "I can't see." He pulled out his phone, using its light to illuminate the stairs. Behind them, the gunfire continued, muffled now by thick walls. Elena's ears were ringing. Her whole body shook. They reached the bottom. Another hallway, this one lined with security monitors showing different angles of the mansion. On one screen, Elena saw men in black scattered across the grounds, returning fire at someone beyond the gates. On another, 2 bodies lay in the snow. She turned away, tasting bile. "Look at me." The man grabbed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I need you to focus. What's your full name?"
Elena Petrov.
"Where are your parents?"
Dead.
"They died when I was 7".
How?
"A fire. In our village." "I don't remember much." The lie came automatically. She remembered everything. The screaming, the smoke, her mother shoving her into a root cellar and never coming back.
His jaw tightened.
"What village? Why does it matter?" Elena pulled away from him.
Who are you?
"Why are people shooting at your house?" "My name is Dante Moretti." He said it like she should recognize it. When her face stayed blank, something flickered across his expression. "You really have no idea where you are, do you?" "I was supposed to meet Mr. Chen," the agency said. "There is no Mr. Chen." "Not here." Dante pulled her wrist up again, studying the mark. "This symbol. Did your mother have it too?" Elena blinked. "How did you know about my mother?" "Answer the question."
Yes.
"She had the same mark. She said it ran in her family." "Why?" Dante's phone buzzed. He answered without taking his eyes off Elena. "Talk to me." A man's voice crackled through. "They're pulling back, boss. For shooters, 2 down, 2 escaped. Want us to pursue?"
No.
Secure the perimeter and get me a vehicle at the east exit. 3 minutes, he hung up. We're leaving. Leaving? I just got here. And whoever sent you here just tried to kill you. Dante grabbed a jacket from a hook on the wall and threw it at her. Put this on. Your coat is garbage. Elena caught it automatically. The jacket was heavy, lined with fleece, and smelled like leather and cologne. She put it on because her teeth were chattering, not because she was following orders. I don't understand any of this. Join the club. Dante moved to a weapons locker, pulling out a second gun and checking its magazine with practiced ease. That mark on your wrist? My mother wrote about it. In her diary. Before she died. Elena's stomach dropped. What? She documented everything. Every family connected to ours, every alliance, every blood debt. He slammed the magazine back in place. She mentioned a girl from a family called the Petrovs. A family that protected our bloodline during the war between the old families. A family that got massacred for it. The room tilted. Elena grabbed the wall. That's not possible. My parents weren't connected to Mafia families. They were normal people. Were they? Dante's voice was sharp. Think, Elena. Why would a mail-order bride agency send you to my address instead of some banker in Queens? Why would shooters show up the same night you arrive? Why would they try to take you alive? Take me alive. Elena's voice cracked. You said they tried to kill me. I saw the angle of those shots. They were aiming for my men. Not you. Dante moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the small space. Someone wanted you delivered to my doorstep. Someone wanted to see what I'd do when I saw that mark. And when I didn't react the way they expected, they tried to extract you. Elena's mind raced. The agency had contacted her out of nowhere, offering her a way out of Ohio after she lost her job. The process had been rushed. Too easy. They'd even paid for her bus ticket. This is insane, she whispered.
I'm nobody.
I work at a diner. I have $17 to my name. Why would anyone? Because of who your parents were. Dante's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it. Vehicles ready. We need to move. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then you're dead, he said it flatly, without emotion. Those shooters know you're here. They'll wait until I'm gone. Then they'll come back. And next time, they won't use guns. They'll use fire. His eyes locked on hers. Just like they did to your village. Elena's breath caught. The memory she'd buried for 18 years clawed its way up. Soldiers searching houses, her mother's terrified face, the smell of kerosene. How do you know about the fire? Because my mother wrote about it. Dante opened the door to the east exit. Cold air rushed in. She wrote about a family that hid documents, evidence of corruption in 3 mafia families and 2 police departments. She wrote about how they were wiped out to keep those secrets buried. He looked back at her. She wrote about a little girl who survived. A girl with a crescent mark who vanished the night of the massacre. Elena couldn't move.
Couldn't breathe.
Dante held out his hand. You can come with me and learn the truth. Or you can stay here and die not knowing why. Outside, an engine rumbled. Elena looked at his hand. At the door. At the monitors showing the bodies in the snow. She took his hand. The SUV's tires screeched as they tore through the back gate. Elena gripped the door handle, watching the mansion shrink in the side mirror. Smoke rose from one of the wings. Her arrival had brought this. Whatever this was. Dante drove with one hand on the wheel, the other on his phone, barking orders. I want every inch of that property swept. Find me shell casings, tire tracks, anything. And get Marco on the phone.
Now.
2 men sat in the back seat, both armed, both watching the road behind them. Elena felt their eyes on her every few seconds, like she might explode. Where are we going? Her voice sounded small. Somewhere safe. Dante took a sharp turn that threw her against the door. Somewhere off the grid. They drove through neighborhoods that got progressively rougher. The Christmas lights disappeared. The houses became apartments, then warehouses, then nothing but empty lots and closed storefronts. Finally, Dante pulled into an alley behind a brick building with a faded sign that read, Rosa's Bakery. Out, he was already moving, gun in hand, scanning the alley. The men from the back seat flanked her as they climbed a metal staircase to a second-floor door. Dante unlocked it with a key from his pocket and pushed inside first, clearing the space before gesturing for Elena to enter. The apartment was small. One room with a kitchenette, a bed in the corner, a couch that had seen better days. But it was warm, and the windows were covered with thick curtains. Elena could smell bread from the bakery below. Sit, Dante pointed at the couch.
Elena sat.
Her legs felt like water. One of the men stationed himself by the door. The other disappeared into what she assumed was a bathroom. Dante paced, phone pressed to his ear.
Marco. Talk.
No, she's here. She's safe. Because she is the mark. That's why he glanced at Elena. Just like Mama described.
I don't know yet.
Maybe. No, not until I know who leaked the address. He hung up. The silence was suffocating. Someone in your organization knew I was coming? Elena's voice shook. Dante's jaw clenched. The only people who knew about tonight were my inner circle. 6 men I've trusted for years. He slammed his fist against the wall. One of them sold you out. But I'm nobody. Why would? You keep saying that. Dante crouched in front of her, his eyes hard. Listen to me very carefully. Your parents weren't bakers or farmers or whatever story you were fed. They were custodians. Protectors of documents that could destroy some of the most powerful families on the East Coast. Documents proving human trafficking, money laundering, political corruption. Evidence that never made it to trial because your family was slaughtered before they could testify. Elena shook her head. That's not possible. I would remember. You were 7 years old. Dante's voice softened slightly. You remember fire and screaming. You remember hiding. What you don't remember is why he stood, running a hand through his hair. My mother's family helped yours hide those documents. When your parents were killed, my mother thought everything was destroyed. But that mark, he pointed at her wrist. That mark means the bloodline survived. Which means someone somewhere thinks you know where the documents are. I don't know anything. Elena's voice cracked. I grew up in foster care in Ohio. I worked at a diner. I was trying to escape debt, not uncover mafia conspiracies. Then why did the agency send you to me specifically? Dante pulled out the crumpled letter, smoothing it on the counter. Look at this. Really look. Elena stood on shaky legs and approached. The letter was typed on official letterhead, New Beginnings Marriage Agency. But as she studied it, details jumped out that she'd been too desperate to notice before. The address for Mr. Chen's apartment had been crossed out by hand and replaced with Dante's mansion address. In the margin, someone had written a single word in pencil. Moretti. Someone wanted you delivered to my door, Dante said quietly. Someone who knew what that mark meant. Someone who wanted to see if I'd recognize you. His phone buzzed again. He read the message and cursed. The agency office in Ohio burned down 2 hours ago. Convenient timing. Elena's knees buckled. Dante caught her before she hit the floor, guiding her back to the couch. Why? She whispered. Why would anyone do this? Because your leverage. The man by the door spoke for the first time. He was older, with gray at his temples. Or bait. Or both. Dante shot him a look. Not helping Vincent. She needs to understand what she's walked into. Vincent's expression was grim. Boss, if someone in our circle leaked this, they're not working alone. This is bigger than a simple hit. Dante nodded slowly. I know. What happens to me now? Elena wrapped Dante's jacket tighter around herself. She was still wearing her wet, torn boots. Still carrying nothing but $17 and a letter that had almost gotten her killed. Dante met her eyes. Now? I keep you alive long enough to figure out who wants you dead and why. He grabbed his keys. Vincent, you're on first watch. No one comes up those stairs. No 1 inch. Where are you going? Elena asked. Dante checked his gun. To have a conversation with the marriage broker who sent you to me. Someone paid him to redirect your file. I'm going to find out who. He was gone before Elena could respond, leaving her in a safe house above a bakery with armed guards and more questions than answers. Outside, church bells rang midnight. Merry Christmas. The warehouse smelled like rust and river water. Dante's footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as he approached the man tied to a metal chair in the center of the empty space. Behind him, his men sealed the doors. The marriage broker, a sweaty little man named Perry Walsh, looked like he might pass out. His suit was expensive but rumpled, his thinning hair plastered to his forehead. When he saw Dante, he started babbling. "Mr. Moretti, please, I can explain." "Then explain." Dante circled the chair slowly. "Start with why you sent Elena Petrov to my home instead of her intended destination." I didn't know it was your home. I swear. The client just gave me an address and said." "What client?" Dante stopped directly in front of him. Perry's eyes darted to the men flanking the exits. "I don't know his name. He paid cash. $50,000 to make one simple change to a file. That's all. Just redirect one bride to a different address. $50,000 for an address change." Dante pulled out his knife, examining the blade. "That's a lot of money, Perry. Makes me think there was more to the job."
No.
"Just the address, I swear." He said it was a prank, a surprise for a friend's bachelor party. "I thought." Dante pressed the knife against Perry's cheek, not cutting, just pressure. "You thought $50,000 was reasonable for a bachelor party prank." Perry whimpered. "I needed the money. The agency was going under. I have debts, Mr. Moretti. Bad debts. The kind that get you buried in the river if you don't pay." Describe the client.
Tall.
Maybe 6 feet. Dark coat, sunglasses. I never saw his face clearly. He came to my office 3 weeks ago, right after I posted Elena's profile. Dante's eyes narrowed. "He came looking for her specifically?"
No.
He scrolled through the files. Looked at maybe 20 girls before he stopped on hers. Perry was shaking now. He stared at her photo for a long time. Then he asked about her background, where she was from, if she had family. "What did you tell him?" "Just what was in the file. Ohio, no family, clean background check. That's all I knew." Dante pulled back the knife. "Where's the file now?" In my office. Downtown. But it's just basic information, Mr. Moretti. Nothing special." "Marco," Dante didn't turn around. "Take 3 men to Perry's office. Bring me everything on Elena Petrov. Every paper, every photo, every note. I want her original application and the modified 1-inch. On it." Boss Marco disappeared through the side door. Dante turned back to Perry. "The original groom. Robert Chen. Where is he?" "Chicago. He's a banker, quiet guy, been looking for a bride for 6 months. He specifically requested someone from Eastern Europe. Good cook, no drama." Elena fit the profile perfectly. "So, why didn't she go to him?" Perry swallowed hard. "The client asked me to tell Chen the agency found him a better match. I sent Chen a different girl, Russian, younger, better English. He accepted the switch. Elena never knew she was supposed to go to someone else originally." Dante's fist slammed into Perry's face. The chair tipped backward, crashing to the floor. Blood poured from Perry's nose. "You sent a girl into a war zone for $50,000. Dante's voice was ice. "You signed her death warrant for money." "I didn't know." Perry sobbed. "I swear I didn't know it would, that people would." "Who else knows about this? Your employees? Your partners?" "Nobody. I processed everything myself. Off the books." The client insisted. Dante pulled Perry's chair upright. "This client. Did he say anything else? Anything about why he wanted her at that specific address?" Perry thought hard, desperation making him focus. He said something strange. He said, "Let's see if the Moretti bloodline remembers its debts." Perry's eyes widened. "What does that mean? What debt?" Dante didn't answer. His phone buzzed.
Marco.
"Boss, we got the file. But there's a problem." "What problem?" "Elena's original application has a different birthplace listed. Not Ohio. A village upstate. Place called Krasnoy." Dante's blood went cold.
Krasnoy.
The village his mother had written about. The village that was burned 20 years ago. And boss? There's a note attached to the file. Handwritten. Says, "The last daughter returns home." Dante ended the call. He grabbed Perry by his collar, lifting him off the ground despite the chair. "The man who paid you. Did he leave any contact information? Anything? A phone number?" "He left a phone number for confirmation." Perry gasped. "It's in my phone. Front pocket." Dante dropped him and grabbed the phone, scrolling through recent calls. One number, unlabeled, called twice. He dialed it. The phone rang once.
Twice.
Then a voice answered, smooth, educated, with an accent Dante couldn't place. "Mr. Moretti, I wonder how long it would take you to find our mutual friend Perry. Who is this?" "Someone who remembers what your family owes mine. Someone who knows that girl carries more than just a pretty birthmark." The voice paused. "Tell me, did you know her mother before she died?" "She had the same eyes. Same defiant expression." "She died badly, Mr. Moretti. Fire is such a terrible way to go." Dante's grip on the phone tightened. "If you touch Elena—" "Oh, I don't need to touch her. You will do that for me. You will keep her close, earn her trust, make her remember. And when she finally leads you to what her parents hid, I will take it from both of you." The voice turned cold. "Merry Christmas, Dante. Your gift has already arrived." The line went dead. Dante stared at the phone, his mind racing. Then he turned to Vincent. "Get me back to the safe house.
Now."
Elena couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the shattered window, heard the gunshots, felt Dante's hand crushing her wrist as he pulled her down. She sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket Vincent had given her, watching dawn break through the gaps in the curtains. The apartment was silent except for Vincent's steady breathing by the door. He hadn't moved in 4 hours. At 6 o'clock, the smell of baking bread drifted up from below. Elena's stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. A lifetime ago. Vincent's phone buzzed. He read the message and looked at Elena. "Boss says you can go downstairs. The baker is his aunt. She's safe. And you?" "I stay here. But Rosa will feed you. God knows you look like you need it." Elena descended the metal stairs on shaky legs. The bakery's back door was unlocked, warm air rushing out to meet her. Inside, an old woman in a flour-dusted apron pulled trays from a massive oven. She looked up, her weathered face breaking into a smile.
"Ah.
You must be the girl Dante called about." Her accent was thick, musical.
Come. Sit."
"You look half-frozen." Elena sat at a small table near the oven. The warmth seeped into her bones. Rosa brought her espresso in a tiny cup and a pastry that smelled like heaven.
"Eat."
"You are too thin." Rosa sat across from her, studying her face. "Dante said you are in trouble. That men came to hurt you." Elena didn't know what to say. She bit into the pastry, sweet cheese and honey, and nearly cried at how good it tasted. "I don't understand any of this," she whispered. "I was just trying to start over. Now people are shooting at me, and Dante says my parents were involved with criminals and..." Her voice broke. Rosa reached across the table and took her hand. "Sometimes the past does not stay buried, child. Sometimes it comes looking for us. But I don't remember anything useful. I was 7 when they died. Just a little kid." Memory is strange. Rosa stood and began kneading dough, her strong hands working the flour rhythmically. "My grandmother used to say the body remembers what the mind forgets. She said the hands know things, the heart knows things, even when the head is empty." Elena watched Rosa's hands move, folding, pressing, turning. Something about the motion tugged at her mind. She'd seen this before. Not in a bakery. Somewhere else. Her mother's hands, covered in dirt, pressing something into the ground beneath their house. "Are you all right?" Rosa's voice pulled her back.
Elena blinked.
I just remembered something. My mother, the night of the fire, her hands trembled. She was burying something in the crawl space under our house. She made me hide there while she went back upstairs. What was she burying? I don't know. It was dark. I was so scared I couldn't think. Elena pressed her palms against her eyes. But she said something. She said, if anyone comes, if anyone ever finds you, tell them the mark will show the way. I didn't understand. I still don't. Rosa stopped kneading. The mark? You have a mark? Elena showed her wrist. Rosa's eyes widened. Madonna Santa, she crossed herself. I have seen this mark before. In old photographs Dante's mother kept. She showed me once. Years ago, when she was writing in her journals, Rosa sat down heavily. There was a family. The Petrovs. They kept records for the old alliances before the families turned on each other. Your family was the memory keeper. What does that mean? It means you were the ones who wrote everything down, who saved the proof. Bank accounts, shipping routes, corrupt officials, everything. Rosa's voice dropped. When the families went to war, they needed those records destroyed. But the Petrovs refused to hand them over. They wanted justice, not more blood. Elena's pastry turned to ash in her mouth. So they killed them. They tried. But your mother was clever. She hid you. And she hid the records where no one could find them. Rosa leaned forward. The mark, child. Your mother said it would show the way. Did she mean the mark would lead you to where she hid the documents? I don't know. It's just a birthmark. It doesn't do anything. Maybe not by itself. Rosa tapped the table thoughtfully. But maybe with something else.
A map.
A key. Something that makes sense only if you have the mark to decode it. A door slammed upstairs. Heavy footsteps on the metal stairs. Dante appeared in the doorway, his suit jacket missing, his shirt stained with something dark. He looked at Elena, then at Rosa. She remembered something, Rosa said. Dante crossed the bakery in 3 strides. What did you remember? Elena told him about her mother burying something, about the crawl space, about the strange words. Dante listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph of a handwritten note. The last daughter returns home. Elena read aloud. What does that mean? It means someone wants you to go back to Krasnoy, to the village where your parents died. Dante's jaw clenched. They think you'll lead them to whatever your mother buried. But I don't know where anything is. Your conscious mind doesn't. Dante crouched in front of her. But Rosa is right. Memory is strange. You might remember more if you see the place again. Elena shook her head violently.
No.
No, I'm not going back there.
Anna.
That place killed my parents. I can't. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Dante's expression softened slightly. I won't force you. But someone out there thinks you know where those documents are. And they will keep coming until they get what they want. The only way to end this is to find the records first. Or destroy them, Elena whispered. Or that. Dante stood. But first, we need to know what we're dealing with. And I need to find the traitor in my organization before they find you. 3 days passed in the safe house. 3 days of Vincent and his rotating guards, of Rosa bringing meals, of Elena jumping at every sound. 3 days of Dante arriving at odd hours, covered in tension and secrets, asking her questions about her childhood that she couldn't answer. On the 4th morning, he appeared with a heavy coat and an order.
Get dressed.
We're going out. Elena looked up from the book Rosa had brought her. Where? Somewhere my mother used to go. Somewhere she kept things. He tossed the coat at her. 5 minutes. The drive took them north, out of the city and into the countryside. Snow covered everything, fields, trees, abandoned barns. They passed through a small town with a single stoplight, then turned onto a road that barely qualified as one. The chapel appeared through the trees like a ghost. It was small, stone, with a roof that sagged in the middle and windows covered in boards. The cross on top tilted at an angle. No tire tracks led to it.
No footprints.
This place had been forgotten. Why are we here? Elena asked as Dante parked. Because my mother wrote about this place in her final journal. She came here when she needed to think. To remember, he got out. And because she left something here for me. Something I never looked for until now. Two of Dante's men were already there, having arrived earlier to secure the area. They nodded as Dante approached the chapel's door. He produced a key, old, iron ornate. How long has it been since you were here? Elena asked. 10 years. Not since her funeral. He turned the key. The lock resisted, then gave with a groan. Inside, the chapel was surprisingly intact. Pews still stood in rows, though covered in dust and bird droppings. Stained glass windows, the ones not boarded, cast colored light across the floor. An altar stood at the front, bare except for a stone cross. Dante walked straight to the altar. He pressed something on its base, and a section of the floor behind it clicked open, revealing stairs leading down. Elena's heart hammered. What is this? A hiding place. My grandfather built it during Prohibition to store whiskey. My mother turned it into something else. He pulled out a flashlight and started down. Come on. The stairs led to a small room with stone walls and a low ceiling. Shelves lined one side, filled with boxes and leather-bound books. A desk sat in the corner with a lamp that, when Dante flipped a switch, flickered to life on a battery. She had power down here. Generator outside, hidden in what looks like a maintenance shed. Dante moved to the shelves, running his fingers along the spines of the journals. She documented everything. Every deal, every betrayal, every family secret. He pulled out a journal dated 20 years ago, including the night your family died. Elena's legs felt weak. Dante gestured to a chair. She's Saturday. He opened the journal, flipping through pages covered in elegant handwriting.
Here.
November 15th, 2005. Received word that the Petrov family was attacked tonight. Fire consumed the entire village of Krasnoy. Marcus says there were soldiers, professionals, not local thugs. The girl, Elena, is missing. Presumed dead with the others. Elena's breath caught. Dante continued reading. Antonio believes the Petrovs were silenced before they could testify. The documents they kept, evidence of the trafficking operation through the harbor, were the target. But Maria Petrov was clever. She knew they were coming. The question is, did she destroy the evidence or did she hide it? He looked up at Elena. My mother spent years trying to find out what happened to those documents. She believed they still existed. That your mother wouldn't have sacrificed her family for nothing. Why did your mother care so much? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Dante closed the journal. Because my grandfather was involved in the trafficking ring. Not as a leader, but as a silent partner. When my mother found out, she tried to expose it. But she couldn't do it alone. The Petrovs had the evidence, shipping manifests, payment records, names of every official on the payroll. He set the journal down. Your parents were going to testify. My mother was going to protect them. But someone found out. Someone struck first. And my mother hid me instead of the documents. Your mother saved your life. Dante moved to another shelf, pulling out a large leather folder. But she also left clues. My mother documented everything she could find. He opened the folder, spreading papers across the desk. Elena stood and looked over his shoulder. Photographs of her village, before the fire. Maps with markings. Letters in a language she recognized but couldn't read. And in the center, a drawing of the crescent mark. Your mark isn't just a birthmark, Dante said quietly. It's a sigil. A family seal. In the old country, important families used them to mark documents, to verify authenticity. He pointed to notes in the margin. My mother believed your mother marked the location of the hiding place. Maybe on a map, maybe on a deed, maybe somewhere else. But somewhere that only someone with the mark would understand. Elena stared at the drawing. It was identical to her mark, but in the sketch, the crescent had tiny notches along its curve. Numbers? Letters. I never noticed, she breathed. My mark, it has these too. I always thought they were just irregular edges. Dante grabbed her wrist, pulling it into the light. Sure enough, 7 tiny notches marked the curve of the crescent, so small they looked natural. 7 notches, Dante murmured. 7 what? Miles? Coordinates? Degrees? Elena's mind raced back to the crawl space, to her mother's dirt-covered hands, to those final words. "The mark will show the way," she whispered. "Not just show. It is the way." They were halfway back to the city when the black sedan appeared in the rearview mirror. Dante noticed it first. His jaw tightened. "We have company." Elena turned to look, but Dante grabbed her shoulder. "Don't." Eyes forward. The sedan matched their speed, staying 3 car lengths back. Then a second vehicle appeared, a dark van that pulled alongside them in the next lane. "Hold on," Dante's foot slammed the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, engine roaring. The sedan behind them sped up. The van swerved, trying to cut them off. Elena gripped the door handle as Dante took a hard right onto an exit ramp, tires screaming. "Call Marco." Dante barked at the man in the passenger seat. "Tell him we're being pushed toward the docks. We need backup at the East River access road."
Now.
The man was already dialing. "Boss, they're trying to box us." The van rammed them from the side. Elena screamed as the SUV skidded, Dante fighting the wheel. They careened onto a narrow road lined with warehouses. Behind them, the sedan closed in. Ahead, a third vehicle, a black truck, blocked the road. "They planned this," Dante said through gritted teeth. He yanked the wheel left, jumping the curb and tearing through an empty lot. Chain-link fence exploded around them. They burst onto a waterfront road. The river stretched black and cold to their right. Warehouses loomed to their left. No other cars.
No witnesses.
The sedan and van were right behind them now. The truck had circled around, appearing ahead again. "They're hurting us," the man in the passenger seat said. Dante pulled his gun. "Elena, get down." On the floor.
Now.
She slid off the seat just as bullets shattered the back window. The men in the back seat returned fire. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Dante spun the wheel hard, executing a maneuver that sent them into a controlled skid. They ended up facing their pursuers. For a split second, everything froze. Then Dante floored it, driving straight at the sedan. The sedan's driver panicked, swerving. They clipped each other, metal shrieking, and the sedan spun out into a concrete barrier. But the van and truck were still coming. "There." The passenger pointed at a gap between warehouses. Dante took it, the SUV barely fitting. They emerged into a loading area surrounded by rusted shipping containers. Dead end. "Out." Dante grabbed Elena, hauling her from the vehicle. His men piled out, taking defensive positions behind the SUV. The van screeched into the lot. Then the truck. Doors opened. 6 men emerged, all armed. But they weren't shooting. "Mr. Moretti." A man in a long coat stepped forward, hands visible but holding a phone, not a gun. "We're not here to kill you. We just want the girl." "Not happening." Dante positioned himself in front of Elena. "Be reasonable."
She's nobody to you.
A mail-order bride who showed up at the wrong address. The man's accent was Eastern European. "Hand her over, and you walk away. Keep her, and this becomes a war between families." "Whose family?" Dante's gun never wavered. "Someone who has a prior claim to what the Petrovs stole. Someone who has been looking for that little girl for 20 years. The man's smile was cold. "Did you know her real name isn't Elena Petrov? It's Elena Volkova. Her mother took her father's name to hide her. But blood doesn't lie, Mr. Moretti. She belongs to us." Elena's world tilted. Volkova. That name, she'd heard it before. In nightmares. In fragments of memory she'd convinced herself weren't real. "I don't know you," she said, her voice shaking. "But we know you. We know the mark you carry. We know what your mother told you before she died." The man took a step closer. "The mark will show the way." "That's what she said, yes? We've been waiting for you to grow up, to come looking. And now here you are." "She's not going anywhere with you," Dante said. "Then you'll die protecting someone else's secret." The man raised his hand. But before he could signal his men, gunfire erupted from the rooftops. Dante's reinforcements. The loading area exploded into chaos. Elena hit the ground as bullets flew overhead. Dante covered her with his body, returning fire. His men advanced, using the containers for cover. The Eastern European man was already running back to the van, shouting orders. His men laid down covering fire, dragging a wounded comrade. "We can't let them leave," Dante's passenger yelled. "Let them go," Dante ordered. "Get Elena to the secondary vehicle. Move." Hands grabbed Elena, pulling her up. She ran, bent low, as one of Dante's men shielded her. They reached a black car hidden behind a container. Someone shoved her into the back seat. Dante appeared seconds later, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve.
Drive.
South Side extraction point. As they tore out of the loading area, Elena looked back. The rival group was retreating, but the Eastern European man stood by his van, watching them leave. Even from a distance, she could see his expression. This wasn't over.
Volkova Elena whispered.
He said my name was Volkova. Dante checked his gun, reloading. Your mother's maiden name. The family she was born into. He looked at her, his expression grim. A family that controlled half the trafficking routes through Eastern Europe 30 years ago. A family that was supposedly wiped out by rivals. But if you're Volkova, then you're not just a witness. You're an heir. Dante's phone buzzed continuously, messages, calls. And if the Volkovas kept records the same way the Petrovs did, those documents aren't just evidence of corruption. Elena's throat was dry. What are they? A ledger. Names, routes, bank accounts. Everything needed to control or destroy a criminal empire worth billions. Dante met her eyes. You're not carrying the key to justice, Elena. You're carrying the key to a kingdom. The safe house was no longer safe. Dante moved Elena to a high-rise apartment in Manhattan, one of his legitimate properties under a corporate shell. 23rd floor, bulletproof windows, security guards in the lobby who answered only to him. But the luxury didn't calm Elena's racing heart. She stood at the window watching the city lights, while Dante made calls in the next room. His voice was low, urgent, angry. She heard words like breach and leak and traitor. When he finally emerged, he wasn't alone. An old man followed him, thin, scholarly, with wire-rimmed glasses and ink-stained fingers. He carried a worn leather briefcase like it contained the secrets of the universe. Elena, this is Dr. Castellano. He's an archivist. He's worked for my family for 40 years. Dante gestured to the dining table. He's the one who helped my mother with her research. And he knows what your mark means. Dr. Castellano set his briefcase on the table and opened it with reverent care. Inside were documents protected in plastic sleeves, photographs, and a magnifying glass. Miss Volkova, he said gently, may I see your wrist? Elena sat and extended her arm. The old man examined the mark with his magnifying glass, his breath catching. Extraordinary. I've only seen drawings. To see the actual sigil, he pulled out a photograph, old, sepia-toned. It showed a woman in early 1900s dress, her wrist prominently displayed. The same crescent mark. This is your great-great-grandmother, Katerina Volkova. She was a record keeper during the first wave of immigration. When the families came to America, she documented everything.
Why?
Elena asked. Insurance. Dr. Castellano pulled out more documents. The Volkovas understood that power lies in information. They kept meticulous records, not to blackmail, but to protect themselves. If anyone moved against the family, the records would be released. Mutual destruction as a deterrent. But it didn't work, Elena said bitterly. My family was destroyed anyway. Not entirely. The old man adjusted his glasses. Your mother, Maria, was the last keeper. When the trafficking investigation began, she realized the records could be used for good. To expose the operations, save the victims, bring justice. But the families couldn't allow that. They sent soldiers to retrieve the documents and killed everyone who knew where they were hidden. Almost everyone. Dr. Castellano pointed at her mark. The sigil is more than a family symbol. It's a map and a key combined. Look at the 7 notches. He laid out a map of New York State from the 1980s, then placed a clear overlay on top. With a pencil, he traced the crescent shape, aligning it with the coastline. The notches correspond to 7 locations: safe houses, businesses, properties where the Volkova family operated. Your mother hid pieces of the records in different places, never all together, never in one vulnerable spot. Elena stared at the map. But how would I know which locations? There must be hundreds of buildings. The numbers. Dante leaned over the table. The notches aren't random. They're measurements. Distances from a central point. Dr. Castellano nodded. The central point being the place where the sigil was first registered. The place where your family began their American legacy. Where?
Elena whispered.
Krasnoy, the old man, pulled out a deed. Old, fragile, written in Russian and English. The village was purchased by the Volkova family in 1902. It was a company town. Everyone who lived there worked for your family. When the trafficking ring was exposed, the village became a liability. So it was burned. Elena felt sick. Everyone died because of my family's documents. Everyone died because evil men fear exposure, Dante corrected. Don't confuse cause and effect. Dr. Castellano pulled out a final document, a survey map of Krasnoy from 1980. Your mother's house is marked here. But notice this. He pointed to a circle drawn in pencil. This is the church. The original church where your great-great-grandmother registered the family seal with the parish priest. Church records were considered sacred, legal proof. Are you saying the documents are in the church? Elena asked. I'm saying the church is the central point. The 0-degree mark from which all other locations are measured. He placed a compass on the map, centering it on the church. 7 notches on your wrist. 7 directions from the church. 7 hiding places. Dante pulled out his phone, photographing the map and the overlay. So, to find the documents, we need to go to Krasnoy, locate the church, and use Elena's mark to measure distances. But the village was destroyed, Elena protested. Everything burned. Stone doesn't burn, Dr. Castellano said quietly. The church was stone. The foundation remains. And foundations are excellent places to hide things. Dante's phone buzzed. He read the message, and his expression darkened. Marco just confirmed it. The man from the docks, the one who called you Volkova, is Alexei Sokolov. He works for the Sokolov family. They were the Volkovas' main rivals in the old country. Why does he want the documents? Elena asked. Because the trafficking ring didn't end when your village burned. It adapted. The Sokolovs took it over, expanded it. But if the original records surface, records that link modern operations to the old ones, Interpol, the FBI, everyone will come down on them. Dante met her eyes. You're not just a witness, Elena. You're a nuclear bomb aimed at one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. And they'll do anything to disarm me, Elena whispered. Or detonate you on their terms. Dante closed Dr. Castellano's briefcase. Which is why we're going to Krasnoy. Tomorrow. We're going to find those documents before Sokolov does. And if we can't, Dante's jaw set. Then we make sure nobody can. Dante changed plans at 3 in the morning. Elena woke to find him in the living room, surrounded by his men, studying photographs on a laptop. When he saw her, he gestured her over. We're not going to Krasnoy yet. First, we're going to Chicago.
Why?
Because Robert Chen, your supposed original groom, just became very interesting. Dante turned the laptop toward her. The screen showed a news article. Banker's apartment burns in suspected gas leak. Elena's blood went cold. When? Last night. The fire department found accelerant. This was no accident. Dante's expression was grim. Chan is missing. His neighbors said they saw him leave in a hurry 2 days ago with a suitcase. Someone got to him. Or he ran because he knew someone would. Dante closed the laptop. Either way, he's a loose end. And I need to know what he knows before Sokolov finds him first. 4 hours later, they landed in Chicago on a private plane. The city was gray and cold, wind cutting through the streets like knives. Dante had 3 men with him, Marco, Vincent, and a younger man named Tony, who never smiled. They drove to Chen's burned apartment building. Police tape stretched across the entrance, but the officers had left. Dante's men made quick work of the lock. The apartment was a black skeleton. Walls charred, furniture melted, the smell of smoke so thick Elena's eyes watered. But Dante moved through it like he'd done this 1,000 times, examining what remained. Kitchen fire, they'll say. But look, he pointed at the door frame. Burn pattern starts here. Someone poured accelerant along the entry, trapping anyone inside. But Chen wasn't inside, Marco said.
No.
Which means he knew it was coming. Dante crouched near what used to be a desk. Help me look. Anything that survived. Papers, hard drives, anything. They searched for 30 minutes. Elena found nothing but ash and melted plastic. But Tony called out from the bedroom.
Boss.
You need to see this. Behind where the bed had been, a section of wall had burned away, revealing a safe built into the brick. The safe door hung open, empty, but not damaged by the fire. Someone opened this before they set the fire, Vincent said. Orchin opened it himself before he ran. Dante examined the safe's interior with a flashlight. Nothing. Cleaned out completely. Elena's stomach sank. Another dead end. But Marco was studying something on the floor, a piece of paper, partially burned. He picked it up carefully. Boss. This was under the safe, protected from the worst of the fire. Dante took it. The paper was mostly black, edges crumbling, but a few words remained visible. Elena read over his shoulder. Payment confirmed. Agency contact Perry Walsh. Girl arrives December 25th. Will confirm receipt. And at the bottom, an account number. Partially burned, but enough digits remained. Chen was paid to order Elena, Dante said quietly. Perry told the truth about that part. But why? Elena's voice shook. Why would a banker in Chicago agree to order a bride just so someone could redirect her? Let's ask him. Marco held up his phone. I've got a hit on Chen's credit card. Used 2 hours ago at a motel on the south side. He's still in the city. The motel was the kind where you paid cash and didn't ask questions. Dante sent Marco and Tony around back while he and Vincent approached the front. Elena stayed in the car, watching through tinted windows. Dante didn't knock. He kicked the door open. There was shouting, movement, then silence. 5 minutes later, Dante emerged, dragging a small Asian man in a wrinkled suit. Chen looked terrified, his face bruised, his hands shaking. They shoved him into the car next to Elena. He stared at her, eyes widening. You're supposed to be dead, he whispered. Funny, Dante said from the front seat.
People keep saying that.
Start talking, Chen. Why did you order Elena? I didn't have a choice. Chen's voice cracked. They said they'd kill my sister. She lives in Beijing. They sent me photos of her apartment, her route to work, everything. They said order the bride, let them change the address, keep quiet, and my sister stays alive. Who approached you? I don't know. A man, Russian accent, expensive suit. He came to my bank, waited until my shift ended. Said he knew about my gambling debts. Said he'd pay them off and give me 50,000 extra if I did this one thing. Dante's jaw clenched. You sold a woman's life for $50,000. I thought it was just a prank, a revenge thing. He said she'd be scared, maybe embarrassed, but not hurt. Chen looked at Elena, desperation in his eyes. I swear I didn't know people would try to kill you. When I saw the news about the shooting at the mansion, I knew I'd made a mistake. I grabbed what I could and ran. What did you grab? Dante asked. Chen hesitated. Vincent put a gun to his head. Answer. Documents. The man gave me documents to sign. Contracts, forms, I don't know what they all were. He said destroy them after, but I kept copies. Insurance. Chen fumbled in his jacket, pulling out a folded envelope. It's all here. Everything. Dante snatched the envelope and opened it. Inside were photocopies, bank transfers, emails, and a contract. Elena watched his face as he read, saw his expression go from anger to shock. "What is it?" she asked. Dante handed her a page. It was an email from Perry Walsh to someone with a Russian email address. The subject line read, Elena Volkova, confirmation of identity. Below it, attached, was a scanned copy of her birth certificate. The original, not the amended one she'd grown up with. Name, Elena Katerina Volkova mother, Maria Volkova father, unknown birthplace, Krasnoy, New York. They knew exactly who you were from the beginning, Dante said quietly. This was never a mistake. They've been tracking you your entire life, waiting for the right moment to move. They flew back to New York that night. Chun came with them, not by choice. Dante needed him alive as a witness, though the banker looked like he wished he were anywhere else. Elena barely slept on the plane. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that birth certificate.
Elena Katerina Volkova.
A name that belonged to a girl who died in a fire. Except she hadn't died. She'd been hidden, renamed, sent through foster care under a false identity. Who changed my records? She asked Dante across the aisle. Who made me Elena Petrov? Someone who wanted you to disappear. Someone who cared enough to save you but not enough to claim you. Dante's expression was dark. My mother might have known. The timing fits. She was still alive in 2005. She had connections in social services. Your mother saved me? Maybe. Or maybe she just documented it. He looked away. I'll never know now. They landed at dawn. Marco had arranged a meeting at a luxury hotel in Midtown, neutral ground, public enough to discourage open violence. Dante was gathering his inner circle, the 6 men he'd trusted for years. One of them had betrayed him. Tonight, he'd find out which one. The hotel's penthouse suite had been swept for bugs, guards posted at every entrance. Elena waited in a bedroom while Dante's men assembled in the main room. She could hear their voices through the door, greetings, questions about the urgency. Dante let them settle, then his voice cut through the chatter. Gentlemen, we have a problem. The room went quiet. 3 weeks ago, information about Elena Petrov, Elena Volkova, was leaked to the Sokolov family. They knew she was coming. They knew when and where she'd arrive. They knew about the marriage agency Dante's footsteps paced. Only 6 people outside this organization had that information, and only one person inside it. Silence. Tense, suffocating silence. I've spent the last week investigating each of you. Bank accounts, phone records, recent contacts. Dante's voice was ice. 5 of you are clean. 1 of you is not. Elena pressed her ear to the door. Her heart hammered. Boss, if there's a traitor, let us help you find him, someone said. Marco, she thought. Oh, I've found him. Dante's tone didn't change. The question is whether he'll admit it before I present the evidence. More silence. Then a chair scraped. It was me. Elena's breath caught. She knew that voice. Vincent. The man who'd guarded her at the safe house. The man who'd brought her blankets and told her she was safe. Vincent.
Marco sounded shocked.
What the hell? They have my daughter, Vincent's voice cracked. Sokolov's men took her from her college dorm 3 weeks ago. They sent me videos. They said if I didn't feed them information, they'd send her back in pieces. Elena's hand covered her mouth. Why didn't you come to me? Dante's voice was dangerously soft. Because I knew what you'd say. You'd tell me we don't negotiate with kidnappers. That we'd get her back, through force. But Sokolov isn't some 2-bit operator, boss. He's got resources, connections. What if we failed? What if she died, because I asked for help? So you sold out Elena instead. I didn't know they'd try to kill her. I swear, boss, they said they just needed to know where she was. That they wanted to talk to her, make a deal. I didn't know about the shooting until it happened. Vincent's voice broke. I've been loyal to you for 15 years. But she's my daughter. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. She understood that desperation. She'd have done anything to save her mother, too. Where is she?
Dante asked.
A warehouse in Red Hook. They move her every few days. But that's where she was yesterday. They send me proof of life videos. Vincent's voice turned pleading. Help me get her back, boss.
Please.
Then you can do whatever you want of me. A long pause. Marco, take 4 men to Red Hook. Find Vincent's daughter. Alive, Dante's command was sharp. Vincent, you're going to call Sokolov right now. You're going to tell him Elena is being moved to Krasnoy tomorrow morning. You're going to give him the route, the vehicle, everything. Boss. Vincent sounded confused. You're going to set a trap, and Sokolov is going to walk right into it. Elena heard movement, urgent conversations, phones being dialed. She stepped back from the door as it opened. Dante stood there, his expression unreadable. You heard? She nodded. Vincent made a choice. A father's choice. I understand it. Dante's jaw clenched. But it put you in danger. That I can't forgive. What happens to him? That depends on whether his information leads us to Sokolov. And whether his daughter is still alive. Dante held out his hand.
Come.
We have planning to do. The main room had cleared except for Vincent, who sat at the table looking 20 years older. He looked up when Elena entered. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you survived. Elena didn't know what to say. She just nodded. Dante spread a map across the table. Krasnoy is here. 3 hours north. Isolated, no cell coverage, 1 road in and out. Perfect for an ambush, theirs or ours. You're really going? Elena asked. We're really going. But not the way Vincent will tell Sokolov. Dante marked several points on the map. He'll expect us on the main road. We'll come from the river. He'll expect a small team.
I'm bringing 20 men.
And he'll expect us tomorrow morning. Dante looked at Vincent. We leave tonight. Vincent picked up his phone with shaking hands. I'll make the call. As he dialed, Elena watched Dante's face. This was a man who controlled an empire through fear and loyalty. But she saw something else now, the weight of impossible choices. The burden of protecting everyone while trusting no one. After this, she said quietly, after we find the documents, what happens to me? Dante met her eyes. That's your choice. It always has been. The convoy left at midnight, 3 vehicles, 20 armed men, and Elena, who insisted on coming despite Dante's protests. Those documents belong to my family, she'd said. I'm not hiding while you risk your lives for them. Dante hadn't argued further. Maybe he understood that she needed this. Needed to face the place where her childhood ended. They drove north through darkness, avoiding the main highway. The route took them along back roads, through sleeping towns, past forests that pressed close to the pavement. Vincent had made the call to Sokolov, feeding him false information about a morning departure on Route 9. If everything went according to plan, Sokolov's men would be waiting at the wrong location while Dante's team approached from the east, following an old logging road that ended near the river. Elena sat beside Dante in the lead vehicle. Neither of them spoke much. What was there to say? By dawn, this would be over, one way or another. They reached the logging road at 2 a.m. The vehicle slowed to a crawl, headlights off, navigating by moonlight. The forest was dense here, branches scraping against the windows. Half a mile ahead, Marco said from the driver's seat. Then we walk. They parked in a clearing and continued on foot. Dante's men moved like shadows, weapons ready, communicating with hand signals. Elena stayed close to Dante, her boots crunching on frozen ground. Then she saw it. The village of Krasnoy. Or what remained of it. Charred foundations stretched across a snowy clearing like broken teeth. Chimneys stood alone, monuments to houses that no longer existed. The shells of burned cars rusted beside collapsed garages. Nature had begun reclaiming everything, trees growing through floorboards, vines covering walls. Elena stopped walking. Her chest tightened. I remember, she whispered. I remember running through these streets. My mother holding my hand. The smell of smoke. Dante touched her shoulder. The church is at the center. Can you keep going? She nodded, though her legs felt weak. They moved through the ruins. Elena recognized nothing and everything. The curve of the road, the spacing of the lots, the hill where she used to play. Her memories were like photographs with holes burned through them, fragmentary but real. The church appeared through the trees. It was stone, just as Dr. Castellano had said. The roof had collapsed, but the walls stood. The wooden door was gone, leaving a gaping entrance. Stained glass windows were empty frames. "Spread out," Dante ordered quietly. "Perimeter watch. Marco, with me. Tony, stay with Elena." They entered the church. Inside, moonlight filtered through the broken roof, illuminating a scene of destruction. Pews had burned. The altar was rubble, but the stone floor remained intact, covered in debris and snow that had drifted through the gaps. Where would the parish records be kept? Elena asked. "Basement, maybe. Or a vault." Dante examined the floor, pushing aside burned wood. "Look for a door, stairs, anything." They searched for 15 minutes before Marco found it, a metal ring set into the floor behind where the altar had been. He pulled, and a section of stone lifted, revealing stairs descending into darkness. Dante went first, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. Elena followed, her heart racing. The stairs were steep, the air below cold and damp. The basement was small, maybe 10 feet square, with stone walls and a low ceiling. And there, against the far wall, stood a metal cabinet. Old, rusted, but still locked. "This is it," Dante breathed. He shot the lock off. The sound was deafening in the confined space. But when he pulled the cabinet open, Elena's hope shattered. Empty. "No," she pushed past him, searching the shelves with desperate hands. "No, they have to be here," Dr. Castellano said. "Elena, stop." Dante pulled her back gently. "Someone got here first." But the map, the mark, everything pointed here. Tears burned her eyes. "My mother died protecting these documents. She can't have." "Wait," Dante crouched, examining the cabinet's interior with his flashlight. "Look at the dust pattern. This cabinet was opened recently, within the last few days. But look," he pointed to the floor. "No footprints in the dust leading to it except ours." Elena didn't understand. "How is that possible?" "It's not. Unless..." Dante stood abruptly and examined the ceiling. Then he smiled grimly. "Unless there's another entrance." He pressed his hands against the walls, searching. Finally, one of the stones shifted. He pushed harder, and a section of wall swung inward, revealing a tunnel. "Your mother was clever," Dante murmured. "The cabinet was a decoy. The real entrance is hidden." They followed the tunnel. It sloped downward, barely wide enough for one person. Elena's breath came in gasps. The walls pressed close. But ahead she saw light. The tunnel opened into a natural cave beneath the church. And there, in a wooden box sealed with wax, were the documents. Elena lifted the box with shaking hands. It was heavy, packed with papers and ledgers. She opened it carefully. Inside were decades of records. Names, dates, shipping manifests, bank account numbers, photographs of men in expensive suits shaking hands with politicians. Evidence of a criminal empire spanning continents. "My God," Dante whispered, looking over her shoulder. "This could bring down a dozen families. Maybe more." Elena pulled out a letter lying on top. It was addressed to her in her mother's handwriting. "My darling Elena, if you're reading this, then you survived. Then you found your way home. These documents are your inheritance, not the crimes they document, but the truth they contain. The choice of what to do with them is yours alone. Whatever you decide, know that I loved you more than life itself."
Manga.
Elena's hands trembled. "She knew I'd come back. She knew you'd have the strength to," Dante said quietly. A gunshot echoed from above. Then shouting. Dante's radio crackled. "Boss, we got company." Multiple vehicles approaching from the south. "Sokolov found us." Dante grabbed Elena's arm. "We need to move."
Now.
"Wait," Elena clutched the box. "I need to decide." "Elena, there's no time." There's always time for this, she met his eyes. You said this was my choice. So I'm choosing. These documents go to the FBI. All of them. Every name, every crime. Let them burn it all down. Dante stared at her. You understand what that means? My family is in these records too. My grandfather, probably my uncles. You could destroy the Moretti name. Or you could rebuild it. Elena's voice was steady now. Without the sins. Without the blood debt.
You said you'd protect me.
Now, let me protect you from becoming like them. More gunshots. Closer. Dante made his decision.
Marco.
Get a team to secure these documents. We're calling the feds. Everything gets turned over. Boss. That's an order. They ran back through the tunnel, Elena clutching the box, Dante covering their retreat. When they emerged into the church, dawn was breaking. And Alexei Sokolov stood waiting with a gun pointed at Elena's chest. The box, Miss Volkova, Sokolov's voice was calm, almost polite. Set it down and step away. Elena's grip tightened. Behind Sokolov, four armed men blocked the church entrance. Outside, gunfire crackled. Dante's men fighting Sokolov's reinforcements. How did you find us? Dante asked, his gun trained on Sokolov. Vincent's daughter was very cooperative once we explained what would happen to her father if she didn't talk. Sokolov smiled coldly. She overheard Marco's planning call. Young people, always on their phones, never paying attention to who's listening. Dante's expression didn't change, but Elena saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Shoot me, and my men kill everyone, Sokolov continued. Or give me the box and walk away. Your choice. There's a third option, Elena said. Both men looked at her. She held up the box. These documents don't just incriminate you. They incriminate everyone, including families who are your current allies. Families who would be very interested to know you're trying to bury evidence that could free them from federal scrutiny. Sokolov's smile faded. You're bluffing. Am I? Elena opened the box, pulling out a ledger. The Bratva, the Camorra, the Yakuza, all here, all implicated in trafficking routes your family controlled. Routes they're still using, paying you tribute for. She held up the ledger. What happens when they find out you tried to destroy the only evidence that could shift blame away from current operations? You think you can turn my allies against me? I think they're your allies until they're not. Elena's voice was stronger now. My mother understood that. Power built on fear only lasts until someone becomes more afraid of something else. Sokolov's gun wavered slightly. Here's my offer, Elena continued. You let us walk out of here. In exchange, I make sure certain pages of these records never see daylight. The ones that link current operations to your family, specifically. The feds will get enough to be satisfied, but your allies won't have proof you've been collecting dirt on them for decades. And I'm supposed to trust you?
No.
You're supposed to trust self-interest. I don't want a war. I want to disappear. The only way that happens is if both sides have something to lose. Elena met his eyes. My mother learned the hard way that trying to expose everything just gets everyone killed. I'm smarter than that. The standoff stretched. Outside, the gunfire had stopped. Either Dante's men had won, or they'd reached a similar stalemate. Finally, Sokolov lowered his gun. You have 48 hours. After that, the deal is off. Agreed. Sokolov gestured to his men. They backed out of the church slowly, weapons still ready. When they were gone, Dante exhaled sharply. That was insane, he said. That was survival. Elena clutched the box. Now, let's finish this before he changes his mind. 24 hours later, Elena sat in a FBI field office in Manhattan, a lawyer Dante had hired at her side. She'd spent 6 hours answering questions, providing documents, explaining her family's history. The agents had been skeptical at first, until they started cross-referencing the names in the ledgers with open investigations. Miss Volkova, this is extraordinary, the lead agent said, flipping through photocopies. We'll need you in witness protection. New identity, relocation. No, Elena's voice was firm. I'm done hiding. I'm done running. You have the evidence. Use it. But I'm keeping my life. The people implicated in these documents will be too busy protecting themselves to come after me. I made sure of that. Elena stood. Are we done here? The agent hesitated, then nodded.
For now.
But we'll need you to testify. Send me a subpoena. Outside, Dante waited in his car. Elena slid into the passenger seat, exhausted. How did it go? He asked. They have enough to launch a dozen investigations. Maybe more. She leaned her head back. It's over. Really over. Not quite. Dante pulled away from the curb. Vincent's daughter is safe. Marco got her out before Sokolov's men could use her again.
And Vincent, he paused.
He's leaving the organization. I'm setting him up with enough money to disappear with his daughter. Start over. You forgave him. I understood him. There's a difference. Dante navigated through traffic. But I can't have someone in my organization who's been compromised. Even if I understand why. They drove in silence for a while. Then Elena asked, what happens now? To us. Dante pulled over, parking along the East River. The water was gray and cold, but the winter sun made it shine. That's up to you, he said quietly. You came here as a mail-order bride. Against your will, to a stranger. Everything that happened after was forced on you. Now you have a choice. Elena looked at him. This man who'd protected her, believed her, fought beside her, who'd given her the agency to decide her own fate. The agency sent me to the wrong address, she said softly. But maybe it was the right one after all. Dante turned to her, something vulnerable in his expression.
Anna.
I'm not going to marry you, because I have nowhere else to go. Or because I owe you. Or because some contract says I should. She took his hand. If I stay, it's because I choose to. Because you saw me as more than a mistake or a burden. You saw my worth when I was wearing rags in a snowstorm. I still see it, Dante said. Then ask me properly. Not as a boss giving orders. As a man asking a question. Dante smiled, a real smile, the first she'd seen from him.
Elena Volkova.
Will you stay with me? Not as an obligation, but as a partner. As my equal. Elena thought about everything she'd lost, her parents, her childhood, her innocence. And everything she'd gained, her name, her truth, her strength. Yes, she said. I'll stay. 1 year later, on another Christmas night, Elena stood in the same mansion where she'd arrived in torn boots and terror. But everything was different now. The mansion had been rebuilt, the damage from that first night erased. Instead of armed guards and suspicion, it was filled with warmth, Rose's cooking, Marco's laughter, even Vincent's daughter, who'd come to say thank you. Dante found Elena by the window, watching snow fall on the grounds. Happy anniversary, he said, handing her a small box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a design that matched her crescent mark. We're already married, she said, smiling. That was a legal arrangement. This is a promise. He took her hand. Last year you arrived in rags, and I saw your worth. This year, I see your strength. Next year, I hope to see your happiness. Elena kissed him. You already do. Outside, church bells rang midnight. Another Christmas. Another beginning. But this time, Elena wasn't arriving at the wrong address. She was exactly where she belonged. The end.